Revenge films.
My name is Hillary. I was a strong career woman working a full-time job at a top-class company in a big city. I fell in love with a passionate man named Thomas, who was the same age as me. Not long after meeting him, we got married. My husband Thomas understood that I wanted to continue working despite getting married, and I was living a smooth-sailing life as a female boss and wife. I was also making a lot more money than Thomas. However, one day I sensed that something was wrong, and when I went to the hospital, I was unfortunately diagnosed with cancer and was going to spend the rest of my life in the hospital. In the beginning, when I was first hospitalized, my husband, Thomas, came to see me every single day. On the first day of treatment, he asked me,
"How's it going? How's chemotherapy? Do you think it's going to work? Do you think you'll be able to get back to work soon?"
I think I might be pushing it. I only started a treatment anyway. I lightly laughed at my husband's joke. My husband Thomas was the type that had never fallen under any kind of serious illness. It seems that there were some parts of him that were a little bit unaware of how serious my condition was. I don't know the details yet either, but radiation and chemotherapy are just to help the spread of the cancer cells and from the tumor from getting any bigger. So I think it works straight away and I'll be healed pretty quickly.
Interesting. Well, do your best to fix it as soon as possible. I mean, look, there are a lot of celebrities that continue working even though they have cancer. So I'm sure you can do the same and get back to work right away.
Yeah, sure. I'll do my best. Those were my husband's last words as he walked out of the hospital room. I let out a big sigh. In recent years, I've heard the efforts of chemotherapy have only continued to rise, and that the side effects have also lessened significantly. However, of course, there are going to be some individual differences per person, and unfortunately for me, I was the type of person to feel those heavy side effects of the chemotherapy. It was severely difficult for me. 3 weeks later, my husband came to visit me in the hospital for the first time in a while. Recently, even though I would send him messages, they wouldn't be opened or read, and he hadn't visited or called during that time.
What's up? How's it going? Is it going well? Are you feeling better?
I'm sorry, Thomas. I'm feeling a bit nauseous, and my body feels so heavy. I'm exhausted.
Interesting. Is that so?
That was all my husband said, and he stared at me from top to bottom.
Hillary, did you lose some weight?
Yeah, I haven't had much of an appetite, and my stomach gets upset easily. I often have diarrhea. Of course, these are all side effects of the chemotherapy. It must mean that it's working, because I've always been healthy after all. I didn't want him to think that I had diarrhea all the time, and since it slipped out of my mouth, I was trying desperately to make up for it, but my husband didn't seem interested in anything I was saying. He didn't seem worried at all.
So, when do you think you can go back to work? Soon?
I don't think so. Actually, I spoke to the company just the other day and I decided to resign from the company. The job that I had a lot of really important responsibilities, and there are a lot of physical and mental difficulties that can cause a lot of stress. So we all agreed that it might be difficult for me to continue working in that role there.
You didn't even discuss this with me though. And you already went ahead and did that?
I'm sorry, but I tried to contact you multiple times about it, didn't I? But you didn't even read any of my messages. And no matter how many times I tried to call, you wouldn't answer the phone. You haven't been here to visit me in the hospital for over a week, isn't that right?
You know, I have a lot to do too. I'm busy over here!
My husband started raising his voice in the hospital room, and all I could do was apologize. My body was getting weaker, and I felt like I was emotionally getting weaker as well. The only response I could make out was, I'm sorry. My husband just muttered under his breath,
Damn it.
and stormed out of the hospital room. Will you be back to visit me, Thomas? I tried to call after my husband, but I didn't get a response. That was the last time I was able to see him for a few weeks. For 1 month after that, my husband didn't come to visit me at the hospital once. I was becoming uneasy of my life, battling cancer in the hospital, and since my husband wasn't replying to any of my messages or calls, I had to be contacting a couple of my colleagues and friends from the hospital bed from time to time. Then unfortunately, as I was messaging my friend, I started to hear bad rumors about my husband as well. Surely there's no way that he would have an affair while his wife is battling cancer in the hospital. Thomas would never do that to me. In the beginning, I tried really hard to believe in Thomas. When we got married at the wedding, we vowed to each other that we would always be there to support one another in sickness and in health. I didn't think that Thomas would betray me or our marriage so easily. And plus, the first time that we spent the night together, this was the one that was passionate. He was...
We're going to love each other for the rest of our lives and support each other as long as we live. Our lives together.
My husband was the only one that said that to me at first. As his wife, I should be the one to believe in him the most. I can't doubt him now. Because of the chemotherapy, I was both physically and emotionally weakened. That's why I tried to convince myself that I was just getting carried away in bed delusions, that those were just side effects of my situation and that everything must be fine. However, time only continued to pass without any contact from Thomas, no matter how many messages or calls I made. And after 2 months of not receiving a single phone call or text, it'd probably be impossible not to be worried. My hope was wearing thin, and I started to have suspicions. At the time, I had a friend that was working at a detective agency, so I asked him to launch an investigation and please relieve me of my suspicions of my husband having an affair. Of course, up until that point, I had received a number of witnesses telling me that they saw my husband in the act of cheating on me, but none of them had definitive evidence. Despite a handful of people telling me the same stories, even still, I believed in him. I trusted him. However, it didn't take long for all the photo evidence to appear that my husband was blatantly cheating on me. I was devastated. This must be a joke. I can't believe it. How could you cheat on me at a time like this? How could you boldly bring your mistress into our home and have an affair in our home? At that point, I had passed the point of anger and I demanded that my husband come to the hospital. Because he was ignoring all contact from me, I had to ask one of our mutual friends to get involved to tell him to come here. When my husband finally walked into the hospital room, he saw me for the first time in months, his eyes opened wide.
Whoa. Those side effects of chemotherapy are crazy! Look at your skin! It's like sandpaper, it's so dry. Not only that, but what are those things that look like pimples all over you? Gross! What happened to you?
This time, my husband came closer and stared straight at the strands of my hair that were remaining on my head.
Hey, are you serious? You're only in your 20s and you're already balding? Even though you're a woman, too! This is wild! How embarrassing!
How could you say awful things? I couldn't help but let the tears fall down my cheeks. Despite everything that I was going through, battling cancer in the hospital, I was suffering every day emotionally with this. And yet I still try to believe in my husband. Where has the time gone? There is no need for me to listen to any of my husband's excuses or reasons anymore, because his attitude has now revealed everything that I need to know. My husband, Thomas, he doesn't love me anymore. It was true that my outer appearance has changed quite a bit since receiving the diagnosis and treatment, but even still, I try to be mindful and do my best to maintain myself. I use low-impact shampoo, and I spend a lot of time drying it on a low setting. I also did my best to put extra effort into my skincare, and that was all because I wanted my husband to still think of me as being beautiful, so all of the efforts were a waste.
So what do you want? Dragging me out here when I'm busy?
Thomas, you're cheating on me, aren't you? I got straight to the point, and when I pointed directly at Thomas, he seemed a bit shocked.
I thought you couldn't even take one step out of this hospital, or even get out of that bed. So how the hell do you know about that?
Well, that's easy. I can just ask any of our mutual friends around town about it, and also I asked a formal investigation through a detective agency. I have all the evidence already.
Ha! What a joke! Instead of putting your efforts into focusing on your recovery, I can't believe that you are wasting your energy on useless things like that! That's why you're still sick, and that's why you're balding!
That's awful. How could you say that to your wife? On the first night that we spent together, you were the one that promised me that we were going to love each other for the rest of our lives and support each other as we live our lives together. And I believed you.
How many years ago are you talking about? That's so far gone in the past. And plus, look at you!
Thomas was pointing a finger straight at my head and holding his belly and laughed out loud.
I don't remember ever marrying such a balding wife like this, you idiot! You bald idiot! This is hilarious! You're not even a woman!
I hadn't lost that much hair that I should be called bald. I was doing my best to maintain it, but I couldn't deny that I had lost a lot of hair since starting the treatment. To be honest, for him to repeatedly point out one thing that had been stressing me out and depressing me the most, I couldn't help the tears from streaming down my face again. However, my husband didn't pay any mind to it in this state and neglected any of my feelings.
When a bald, ugly woman is crying, it doesn't make me feel a single thing at all. And this is why the only time a girl's tears can work as a weapon is limited to pretty girls only.
Then my husband pulled some papers. They were divorce papers.
Here. Well then, let's get a divorce. Surely you don't think that you can still be a wife after you can't even earn money anymore, and on top of that you're balding? That's not wife material at all. You know that, right? If someone like you is my wife, it's way too embarrassing. I wouldn't even be able to face any of my friends if they knew that this is what I married.
I immediately agreed to the divorce and signed the papers. There was no way that this relationship was salvageable, that we could go back to a happy marriage after this. At the time, I had multiple times that I wished that I could die. However, thanks to the support of my amazing friends and family that continued to cheer for me, and I was able to get over this extremely difficult time in my life. 2 years later, I was finally discharged out of my life in the hospital. I had recovered to the point that I actually lead a normal life again. Going through chemotherapy treatment truly was difficult, but it all worked, and I recovered. And then when I went back to my feet, I got married to my old friend of mine. There weren't any grand decisions of love of like there were with my ex-husband, but he was a kind person and every single day I was happy. But then one day my ex-husband showed up at the front door with my current husband in the new house. My husband wasn't home at the time, and so I answered the door by myself.
Hey! We promised each other, didn't we? That we're going to love each other for the rest of our lives and support each other as we live our lives together? So will you help me?
Couldn't believe that those were the first words out of my ex-husband's mouth, and I scrunched my face. What do you mean, love each other for the rest of our lives, when you were the one that had an affair?
Well, that was... You see, I just couldn't bear to watch my beloved wife become so weak, and so I had to escape reality with another woman. Please believe me!
So what? There's no way that I'm gonna accept that. More important, like, why is it that you came out of here and out of nowhere to see me?
Actually, I'm in debt. It's just a mere $30,000, but I know that you're back at work, so that should be nothing when it comes to your income, right? And I know that your husband is a full-time employee too, so can you just lend me some money?
Don't be stupid. Why the hell would I ever help you?
You're my ex-wife, aren't you? Doesn't this make you want to help me? Even though I'm suffering this much?
You're the one that left me alone when I was suffering the most. I kicked my ex-husband out on my front door, and I locked the door on his face. Even after that, my ex-husband came to the house over and over again and tried to apologize. This time, he was bowing his head down to me.
Listen, I need you! You're the only one for me! I still love you!
Even though he put his best face and was looking up at me with puppy eyes, to be honest, I was only disgusted. Not only do I not need you, it's actually beyond that I never want to see you again. Hurry up and get out! After I kicked my ex-husband out again, I asked a mutual friend of what was going on. Turns out my ex-husband had gone into a lot of debt through gambling. And then I also heard that when we first got divorced, he was laughing about the fact that I was losing hair and making it a joke at the pub. That bastard. This was karma, and I decided to fully get my revenge. I took him to court and I collected $30,000 in settlement fee from him of the affair. Of course, from his mistress as well. With this, Thomas's debt doubled in an instant, and he was sent to the depths of hell. He came back desperate. I heard that he got even more hooked on gambling and trying to win back that money in any way possible, but only went further into debt. He ended up putting his hands on dirty money. However, there wasn't a single one of his friends that tried to help Thomas in this situation. It's so important to not only treasure your husband, but also keep your friends close and appreciate them too. And I decided to forget about Thomas anymore. He wasn't my problem. Instead, at home, I waited for the former friend who became my now husband to come home from work, and I started preparing our dinner.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.